I'm a sucker for real-time strategy games. I grew up with Command & Conquer, Warcraft and Starcraft, and of course Dawn of War. To start a base from nothing and build an armed force to stomp your enemies became such an amazing loop to experience in this genre. A genre that sadly died away in the mid-2000s with the rise of consoles and the promise of more profitable projects. The Homeworld series are real-time strategy games dating back to the original game, developed by Relic Entertainment back in the late 90s. Homeworld 1 and 2 seemed to be fairly popular, and I do remember my brother playing the campaigns for hours on end. Despite being a self-confessed RTS fan, I didn't pick up the original two for whatever reason. It's now been more than 20 years and the intellectual property has changed hands a bit since then. So as Homeworld 3 has recently been released by a new developer, I was interested to see what would it be like coming into the series with minimal exposure to the originals. Will it capture me like the originals did with my brother? Or will it prove difficult to bottle that space RTS magic 2 decades on? Being unfamiliar with the characters from the originals probably made it more difficult to get invested in the plot initially. After playing a few missions, I was interested enough to read a little about the lore of this world, so I could come to grips with the goings-on as much as I could. Homeworld 3 begins with the launching of a new mothership, the Kashan, with our two main characters, Imogen, a mega-genius scientist who becomes fleet command by physically melding with the ship, getting her brain impaled by robo-tentacles, and being drowned. And then there's Isaac, who becomes fleet intel by sitting in a chair. Well, that doesn't seem fair. Anyway, with the launching of the new ship comes the opportunity to finally explore an anomaly in the far reaches of space. Now, this anomaly long ago actually claimed the legendary ship the Kashan and its impressive navigator Karan from the original games. Why wait until now to go investigate this growing case of space-time herpes that claimed their hero? Well, the Kashan had the only 3 existing progenitor cores necessary for hyperspace travel. A case of putting all your eggs in one basket. But hey, Imogen is determined to go rescue her probably dead grandma, and with the power of science, has built 3 new synthetic hyperspace cores.
In a cave! With a box of scraps!
And put them all in the Kashan. Wait, they put them all in the one ship? Just like before? Yeah, no, I get it. They're in there now. Kind of a lot of work to get them out. But, like, you don't want to leave spares? No, I'm not trying to jinx the whole thing. You're telling me you don't see the irony of sending all 3 existing cores into deep space with the only human capable of building more? Okay, I'm starting to see why your planet got exploded in the first game. So Imogen and Isaac zoom off to try and find Grandma and cure the space-time herpes. Not going to go into the story and spoil it, but there are enough twists and turns in the plot that I was satisfied by the time the credits rolled. I'm not sure I would say there was much development from our 2 main characters as a result of the story. They start out a bit unsure of themselves, and certainly by the end they're a little more confident, but that's kind of it. Stuff happened, they dealt with it. Did their ideals, their commitments or morals change? Were they compromised for a greater goal? No, not significantly. I started with the tutorial coming to grips with the many controls, which I almost immediately forgot. Homeworld 3 gets a tick straight off the bat with the option for a legacy control scheme of Homeworld 2. My hat goes off to any game that puts in the effort to recognise its legacy player base. So there are 13 campaign missions, a standard skirmish mode, as well as this new mode called War Games, which is a cooperative roguelite PvE mode that actually sounds kind of badass, and could add a bit of longevity for this game. I spent a bit over 10 hours on the campaign, and a couple of hours playing in the skirmish, and then finished off with some war games. As you progress through the game's story, you'll be forced to build ships and keep them maintained. Fortunately, the armada you create in one mission is carried over to the next mission, provided they don't die. And as we progress, we gain the technology to construct bigger and better ships. Now, regarding the ships and their design, they feel very samey. Most ships, apart from the mothership and the cruisers, kind of look very similar. Could we potentially have a ship that's not built in the shape of a phallus? Even the enemy ships are groin adjacent in design. I could maybe stretch my imagination to cope with one side having a uniform shape, but both sides of this war are flying through deep space in crotch rockets?
Look out to starboard.
Oh my god, it looks like a huge...
Privates! We have reports of an unidentified flying object! It has a long, smooth shaft!
I'm going to put it down to an effort to optimize performance. Maybe with more complex designs and tons of units on screen, it might have been more likely to melt graphics cards, I don't know. I found the controls a little frustrating at times. Notably, your units can be put in stances, aggressive, neutral, and passive. For 12 of the 13 missions, I had the aggressive stance set, and I think this was part of my problem. See, some of the frigates, the destroyers, and particularly the battle cruisers move and redirect very slowly. Units would frequently wander away from allies in the pursuit of firefights into situations where they were heavily outgunned, and by the time I realised it, they were just too slow to be pulled back in time. Enjoy the vacuum of space, you morons! It's possible I suck pretty bad at this game, but I sometimes felt like units would just flat out ignore orders. I'd say go here, and they wouldn't, or they'd go somewhere else. It felt like I was herding space cats. Maybe the unit AI is to blame. It has to be said, enemy ships fly blindly into overwhelming force. Occasionally they'll just sit the battle out, floating in space. I played on medium difficulty, which wasn't too challenging despite my willingness to accept heavy unit casualties. Cash was fairly abundant, and it allowed the building of more ships. And once I found that the mining ships could capture and convert enemy destroyers and missile ships, I started collecting them like stamps. It got a bit ridiculous. I felt like a hoarder at one point. I just had shy of 20 destroyers laying waste to anything within a few parsecs. And then the second last mission was taking too long, and I just sent all 20 at the big boss. I took them out probably earlier than I should have been able to, but I lost all 20 of my captured destroyers in the process. Meh, I'll just get more. Despite the storyline being a little by the numbers, the mission design had some good variety. There are all-out battles, stealth components, ambushes, escapes, even navigation challenges. On reflection, I can remember 2 missions clearly, one being the asteroid field navigation mission, which was only memorable because of the frustration I experienced from fighting an imperfect movement order system in a situation that demands precise placements. And the other mission was the ambush mission, where you set up your armada, turrets, and wait for the enemy to suicide themselves on your defense. The sound design, in contrast to the campaign, was excellent. Scattered radio chatter between members of your fleet in the quieter sections feels natural and adds nicely to the immersion.
Moving to guard. Come in, lead. How copy? Standing by.
Ships explode with bow-shaking bass, and the voiceover of Unit Lost sounds so dejected and regretful, as if the voice actor knew the people on board.
We've lost a battle cruiser.
The voice acting of the 2 main characters is pretty good, but I'm not sure on the delivery of the character of Karan. She sounds quite robotic and emotionless.
The Carsajuke is under attack.
Was this the same as the originals? The music is done by Paul Ruskay, who scored the original games, and it's a flavoursome mix of electronic synth with some Indian influences.
Warning, resource control.
It's a good vibe, and this combined with the graphical fidelity and the world's lore is enough to make me want to revisit the original games and actually give them a good solid playthrough. I've already touched on the graphics in the gameplay section, but it deserves repeating. The graphics are solid. The ships, despite looking like
Wang!
are impressive enough. The asteroids and the space detritus that you will come across in the missions look suitably impressive, and occasionally spectacular. But I can't argue with the cutscenes. They were well crafted and evocative. I remember some of the cutscenes from the originals. They were beautifully hand-drawn still images mixed in with occasional CGI, and I remember being floored by the gorgeous art style. In Homeworld 3, we've moved to full CGI, which feels like a little bit of a missed opportunity to rekindle that nostalgia. Having said that, the scenes we get here offer up some truly captivating visuals. Graphical performance was solid on my 2070 Super, and pretty tolerable on my laptop with an RTX 3060, with only a handful of dropped frames. I didn't experience any crashes. So, all up, looking at Homeworld 3's campaign through the eyes of a series newcomer, what's my takeaway? Well, it's a competent story, told with characters that change fairly minimally, has solid cutscenes, excellent graphics, which are marred slightly by looking at an unvaried ship design, but It has outstanding sound and music. The extra game modes of skirmish and war games are welcome, particularly war games, which could have the potential for more game longevity. Speaking for myself, the roughly 10 or 11 hour campaign felt a little short, and skirmish didn't grab me as much as I was hoping. I didn't mind what I was offered in war games, but I probably didn't play enough of it to give any meaningful feedback. I think the game's a pretty good offering, but I wouldn't pay retail price for it. If you're a diehard fan, and this looks similar to the original Homeworld games, you might actually get your money's worth. But as a newcomer, I would probably wait for a sale before opening the cargo hold and retrieving your wallet.
We've lost a battle